certainly in the short term, will potentially have an impact on our resilience and some elements of our service delivery. And we want to be, very honest and open about that, and just explain to everybody what that looks like. We've been through a period where, we've been under intense pressure. So certainly, if you wind back to sort of the summer of 2020, very significant issues around just dealing with the initial sort of impact of the pandemic. And then obviously, as we've gone along, we've been in a position, certainly the last few months, where we had some of the highest COVID case rates in the whole of the UK. And that has an impact on workforce, and therefore on some of our ability to continue to deliver some of those services. As we're now going into a period where our COVID cases have reduced a bit and they've stabilised a bit, but we're now going into a position, obviously, where the other issues around winter flu, etc., and obviously more adverse weather come to bear as well. So we're going to talk a little bit more later on about how those pressures are manifesting themselves, particularly on health service, and we've got some colleagues from CCG to talk through that, talk about social care and some of those other issues. As John says, we're going to have there will be a further conversation later on in December around the budget, but we will talk a little bit about what we think the baseline looks like around our budget into 2023 and beyond. Again, just to give you some sort of preparation for that, and really just talk about how we can work together over the next few months to ensure that actually there's we help each other through this period, and still recognizing that we're in a set of circumstances that we hope won't last for too much longer, and hopefully we will soon get back to the position that we were before, or more similar to the position we were back in March 2020. So that's just the context of what we want to talk about. I'm going to ask Becky Reynolds, our Director of Public Health, now, if I can, just to give you a bit more background about some of those public health issues. Becky, over to you.
Great, thank you, Will, and hello colleagues. It's lovely to see so many people on the call. I've got 2 slides to go through, and so this first slide gives an overview of the situation around COVID in BANES. So our current BANES rate per 100,000 is 479, and with the most recent data that's just come out a little while ago this afternoon, it's gone down a little bit more as well. So it's been running at around that level for a week or so, with perhaps a very slight downward trend. The England rate is 424 per 100,000, so we're still above the England rate, and the England rate has been increasing for the previous 7 days. The Southwest rate is 520, so we're now a little bit below the Southwest rate. In the RUH, we have about 37 patients in hospital, and that's a mixture of BANES and non-BANES residents who have COVID, and it's been consistently at around between 38 and 40 every day for 2 or 3 weeks. The table on the right is a reminder to me to talk about the importance of all of us testing ourselves for COVID regularly. And I know that you'll all be very aware of this, using the rapid tests. So the recommendation for us all is to take lateral flow tests regularly, and some new guidance that's just come out, and you may or may not have seen some comms around that, is to take a lateral flow test just before what they're calling a time of high risk. So if anyone is going to visit an elderly relative or visit somebody who's ill, so visiting or meeting with someone who's at higher risk of getting seriously ill if they get COVID, then we're all strongly recommended to test ourselves with those rapid tests. And that's whether or not we've been vaccinated, because we can still get and still pass on COVID even if we've been vaccinated, although the chance of getting severely ill is greatly reduced if you are vaccinated. So those rapid COVID tests can be picked up from quite a few places. They can be picked up from a hub that's in Bath City on New Bond Street, in quite a few of our libraries, so Timsbury, Radstock, Bishop Sutton, Weston, Midsummer Norton, Keynsham, and the Bath One Stop Shop. Most pharmacies as well also provide them, or people can order them to be delivered to their home. And that's what I've just done yesterday. Actually, I've never yet ordered a home test kit. I've normally gone to the pharmacy, but I've ordered on home and it should be arriving tomorrow. So that feels a very easy way to get hold of kits. And then we also have the COVID-19 outreach van, and the schedule that's on the right-hand side of the slide is a schedule that sets out where the van will be on which days. And the purpose of that van is part of our targeted approach to try to make it as easy as possible for particular parts of the community who may find it more difficult either to test themselves or to go to a testing site. So it's aimed at reaching priority groups, including men, people from Black and minority ethnic populations, people with disabilities or impairments, or people experiencing homelessness and rough sleeping, or people in contact with drug and alcohol services. So people who may find it more useful and helpful to have a service, an outreach van to come out to them. We would really appreciate local insight and suggestions from your area on locations in Bathhaven where it would be really quite helpful to have the van to come and visit yourselves. So if you do have any suggestions of any sites in Bathhaven area forum, please do drop the public health inbox or drop Sarah an email to list them, and we can pick them up and follow them up with you. If we go on to the second slide from me, please. So as we saw, our rates are high, they're still high, and in order for us to keep our freedoms in our everyday lives that we all absolutely want and we all really want to enjoy, we need to keep COVID rates at a low enough level. And so in order to do that, we know that we need to continue with these practices. And I just want to thank people who have been carrying out these practices for such a long time, and just encourage others and ourselves to continue to do that, because they will make a huge difference. And they all are all part of keeping COVID rates at a low enough level so that we can have those freedoms to socially interact in the way we want to. So strong recommendations for all of us to get the COVID and the flu vaccinations that we're eligible for. And I know that Jill will be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. Face coverings, there's more evidence coming together that suggests that face coverings are effective, both in preventing people who have COVID and may not realize it from breathing them out, and also protecting people who wear them by providing a barrier so they don't breathe in virus particles as they're inhaling. We've covered lateral flow tests. The next bullet point is about if any of us have COVID symptoms, to stay at home and to take a PCR test. And that can be booked online or by phoning 119. And finally, those final 3 bullet points, we're really trying to increase the support that we're providing to businesses to encourage them to do those 3 things, to make it easier for people who come into the stores in particular. So particularly thinking about shops and entertainment venues, really encouraging businesses, shops, entertainment venues to make it as easy and as visible as possible for anyone who comes into the store or the venue, to encourage them to wear face covering, make hand sanitizer available, and keep sufficient space in the venue. That's it from me, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation. Thanks, Will.
Okay, so I think we're now going to hand over to Jill, who's going to talk to us a bit more about the vaccination program.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me just to give you an update. So I'm Jill May. I'm Director of Nursing for the Clinical Commissioning Group, but I'm the SRO for the vaccine programme for Baines, Swindon and Wiltshire. So we all know that the boosters, particularly what we're calling the phase 3, giving the boosters gives that 90% protection in adults over the age of 50, and particularly our older age group over 75. And what we have, some of you on the call may be in this age group, we know that as of this week, that if you're aged 40 to 49, you will also be able to come along and book and get your booster. Second doses for those aged 16 and 17 are also going to take place. And I think it's fair to say that we need to watch closely that those younger than 30 may well also be invited for a booster in the very near future. So in a minute, the slide after gives you the overall 1.6 million doses have been given for the first and second dose. But in the Bath and North East Somerset area, we have been there's 37,000 boosters have been given. I think it's also important to say that we are also going out to those harder to reach groups. Certainly the boat going along the canal, that is going out again next week. And we are also ensuring that we're setting up pop-ups where perhaps it's more difficult people to get out. And we really are concentrating on our care homes. So when we do go into the care homes, we are therefore also offering it to those staff that at this minute may not have taken up the vaccine offer. But we really are focusing on our care home residents. There is certainly a weekly clinic set up, not just in the Bath area, but across the patch for staff and students who are in universities. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, we use the word cohort here, but in essence, it's the age group that people were started to be invited right at the beginning when we started the vaccine programme, which is now coming up for a year, the first week in December. So it's an incredible achievement of the public coming forward wanting this vaccine. As I mentioned, you know, we are concentrating on those boosters, but we are still encouraging anybody that is still yet to come forward to have their first dose. We are still making that available. I would like to share that I know that some of you may have seen in the press or concern around not having access to a walk-in clinic. Now, we are putting on access to walk-ins, or what's known as grab a jab, and people can go on the website and they can see where that is. I think you'll be in agreement with me that we have had to stand some of that down yesterday and today, because we have seen hundreds, literally hundreds of people arrive up at the racecourse wanting to walk in and get that. And that's been very difficult on top of the planned booked appointments. I've also needed to do it because I'm really saddened to say that our staff, our volunteers and our security staff have been subjected to rather unpleasant behaviours. And that's something we cannot do. Our staff are so their commitment and compassion to run a smooth running service, it's becoming a little bit too disruptive. This needs to be done safely, but I do wish to give you confidence and assurance. We are looking at where we can set up planned walk-in access. Next slide, please. So just before I invite Bryn to come in on the pressures on the system, I just wanted to say that NHS England commissioned us to deliver the programme. We are making really good progress with children aged 12 to 15. We will be, because of the change, if any child was COVID positive, it has been changed that they cannot have the vaccine now for 12 weeks, whereas we were working to 21 days. That's been extended. What that means is the children's vaccine will now be drawn out a little bit longer, and we will need to look at supplementary offer to invite those children in when they're ready, because there were large numbers of children that were vaccine positive. So we will be building that in. If I may now, I'll hand over to Bryn, who will now talk to the next couple of slides around the pressures on the health and care system. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. So I think the context is on this slide is the appreciation that public are finding it very difficult to get appointments in primary care, getting frustrated with the delays and secondary care. So I think it's important to put this in a little bit of context of how the pandemic has affected our health and care systems and to understand the demand and the impact we're facing. So to put it in perspective, it was already a system that was quite strained and had very limited reserve and capacity to meet extra demand. And obviously the pandemic has created a lot of additional pressures, and they relate. So I'll start with our primary care, because I'm a GP, sorry to not mention that at the start. So I work locally in primary care. So the pressures in primary care are, one, related to the delivery of the vaccine over the past year, as Jill has mentioned, and the pressures are faced on delivering that. Secondly, the fact that during the pandemic, people have unfortunately had to delay and sat on problems that have caused an additionality into their effects on themselves, and created more complex problems that are presenting to us, which has its own issues and multiple problems at that. Thirdly, then there's the delay in patients being seen, which is an effect from secondary care as well. So we're dealing with a population that has more complex issues on a day-to-day basis, and that's augmented by the fact of the pandemic itself and effects on mental health of the population. That's something that's very real and something we're seeing on a daily basis. So that creates an additional demand. Now that additional demand is then affected by our capacity to deliver service in primary, secondary, community all throughout the health and care system in our staff. So our staff are facing the same pressures they have done over the past 2 years in terms of those at high risk are facing greater demands to be isolating. And also there's a continuing cycle of people having to isolate, test, and not be able to deliver the services we normally would have done 2 years ago. So that's some context of some of the pressure faced across the health system. You can say in primary care, demand is up sort of over 20% that it would be on this time of year 2 years ago, when it was already quite pressured. So I appreciate it's very frustrating, and it is a genuine concern that patients can't get appointments when they want them. But when the demand has increased so much and capacity reduced, there's it's a system that's facing an increased strain behind the scenes. But we need to work as best we possibly can with the population, the public, and associated services to make sure we're using all our health and care systems as best we can. And so that means patients, population going to the right place at the right time. And so I think if we can have the next slide, please. Yeah, so it's never a message we wanted to give or reluctantly give as clinicians, to say you need to perhaps consider other places, but it's very important when we're faced with a limited resource that the appropriate level of care is delivered at the right place. So, and what that can often mean is that we need to look at using our pharmacies more. For those that are uncertain what level of care they need, we need to consider using 111. So it's very helpful to use 111 as for the triaging process. And then there's our local in-Baines community wellbeing hub, which is providing an excellent resource for those that don't necessarily need medical help, but need some support in the community, be that around social isolation, general self-esteem concerns, an inability to access the resource they need to maintain their well-being, those sort of spheres that are slightly outside medical health, but are still very important to their health and well-being. So I'd encourage those in the call to consider that and support and share that as a resource. And of course, obviously, if it's life-threatening, go straight to 999. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so handing it over back to you, Rob. Thank you.
Yes, so thanks for Bryn. And just to go into the. Can we go to the next one? Thank you. Okay, so I just want to give you a little bit of context in terms of the council's budget, and like I say, then talk a little about some of the pressure. So again, if you wind back to the sort of the 2021 budget, one of the interesting characteristics about the financial structure of Bath North East Somerset is our dependence upon income. So in a sort of what might be described as a normal year, we would probably get £45 million worth of income from principally three sources: our commercial estate, so that's property we own principally in Bath city centre, from car parking, and also from our heritage services. So a lot of that being driven through the Roma Baths. Now, obviously, so we set the 2021 budget on that basis in February 2020, and then obviously beginning of April, a lot of that income essentially dried up overnight. So we were probably the third worst hit council in the UK around income that was drying up. Now I mention that because, you know, the reality is that's been the financial structure of the council for a long period of time. So when that shock comes into the system, you know, you've got to you have to find a way of maintaining services in the short term, but we've also got to find a way, frankly, of trying to restructure the financial basis of the council so we're not as dependent upon income as maybe we have been previously. And that's the work that we've been doing over the last 18 months or so. And again, you'll see some of that when we talk about the 2022-23 budget. So we lost, I say, about 30 million of that income went in 2021, and in 21-22 we're still seeing the impact of that. So our budget had to effectively reflect the fact that we lost that income. And that's the basis that we set the budget on for this financial year. We're also, because the way that money's distributed, it's around things like deprivation, etc. So we generally speaking have a lower level of spending per resident than most councils across the country. Now you can argue, there's a debate that goes on all the time about how that's, you know, how those formulas are set out and whether that's fair or not. For me, the reality is that's what we had to deal with. So what we did is that in June, July 2020, we set out a financial recovery plan in response to COVID that basically created about £16 million worth of in-year savings. And also by that time, the government had put in place a COVID support package that helped us quite significantly around some of that loss of income. What it didn't do, though, it didn't recompense us for any of the loss of income around our commercial estate. So it did give us some money back for the car parks and the heritage services, but it was still quite a significant amount of pressure. But because we responded quickly to that, and because we went into conversations with UK government very quickly, we were able to stabilise the position, and you know, there wasn't a huge impact actually in terms of service delivery in 2021. And because of the work we did and because of the support we had, we actually ended up by the end of 2021, we balanced the budget and we were actually able to use some of the money that we were given in 2021 to help our position in this financial year. So what we've been doing over the last sort of few months is, again, thinking about the longer term financial structure of the council, and sort of rebasing that. And you will see, as I say, that when we talk on the 14th of December around exactly what that looks like. At the same time, we've been going through a big program of actually trying to modernise and change the way that we deliver our services and sort of future-proof them, in the sense that, you know, what the pandemic demonstrated was that elements of the way that we do things are actually quite fragile. And it also brought to the fore that people's habits have actually changed quite significantly over the last sort of 12, 18 months. So you look at recycling, for instance, I think our recycling, we've been collecting something like, 40, 50% more recycling. A lot of that is to do with the fact that people have had much more deliveries at home. So, they generate more recycling, they generate more waste. And we've got to deal with that. And, whereas previously there was quite a buoyant market for things like selling cardboard on and everything else, because again, there was a massive supply came into the market, the price that we were able to get for that recycled material went down. So we've been pressurized on every single front in terms of service delivery, and also in terms of service we've been trying to deliver. So what we've been doing now is going through all of our services, thinking about how we can change things, and bringing forward savings and also income generation options that protect frontline services as much as we can, and modernise the service delivery, and make sure that we've got added resilience in those services as we go forward. So we'll just have the next slide, Mark. So this just gives you a little bit of sort of more detail about some of the pressures that we've been facing. So again, like many organisations, many businesses across the UK and indeed across the world recently, we've had some really significant staffing and supply chain pressures. Some of that has been because, frankly, there just haven't been the people to fill the posts. Some of it's been because there's been a lot of government money come into the system. That's created more projects that people can do, and therefore there aren't the people out there who can deliver all of the infrastructure projects, etc., that government are putting in place. Then you add in the fact that the amount of people we've had off with COVID, or particularly recently when COVID went through the schools in a more dramatic way, that then had an impact on people's ability to all of those sort of things. That's put real pressure on us. We were, for instance, our contract for electricity for our street lights ended on the 30th of September, and we were faced with a 40% increase in our bill just for electricity. Now that added £400,000 to our spend in this financial year. Now, we can't turn around and go, well, actually, we're not going to buy that electricity. We have to maintain those services. So, those are real pressures that have been around. I think people will have seen lots of media coverage around HGV drivers. Again, that's been a real issue for us, frankly, and that has caused some problems again around the resilience of the service. What's happened in terms of the structure of that is there aren't as many people coming into that industry, and then if you add on the fact that it takes longer because of the backlog to train people to become drivers, that's also put more pressure on the system. So obviously we can't just say to people, go and drive a bin lorry if they're not actually trained to do that. That would obviously wouldn't be a safe thing to do. So again, that's just an explanation about why we are where we are. Okay. So what we've tried to do, and again, people may have views and comments on this, we've tried at all stages to keep people updated about those challenges that we've got, and our website, social media, etc. I've tried to explain that. And now as we go into potentially more adverse weather, it's got colder this week, isn't it? And I think potentially we might see some snow, etc. over the next couple of weeks. That will put more pressure on us, but we're pretty confident that particularly those key issues around gritting routes, etc. We're pretty confident that we'll be able to deliver those key services. So that's just a bit of an explanation, I suppose, about some of the things that you might have seen, you might have heard. My sort of main plea, I suppose, is this is about people working together. This is about us being honest and open about the communication, and asking people, frankly, to be patient, because I do think this is a short-term issue that we've got to resolve. And And hopefully what you will see is, as we come through the winter and hopefully the impact of COVID reduces, then structurally the council is still in a pretty good place. But we have to manage the next few months, and we have to help each other to do that. And as I say, we have to be patient with each other. Next slide. So, okay, so I'm going to hand over. I think Councillor Ball's on the line.
Tim, do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Warren as well. Sorry.
Councillor Warren can do it.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm really. So we've got an overview here about the climate emergency, and I've been doing lots of work with some of our local groups around Bathhaven North in particular. So I know there's lots and lots of stuff going on, and actually I'm really excited later on in the agenda that I think we're going to hear a bit from the new Bathhaven North Climate Emergency Group, where the various groups in the different parishes are going to be sharing information between one another and best practice. So that's really exciting. In terms of messages from the council ahead of the winter, so there are some key messages around waste and recycling. So as Will's explained, we're going to carry on trying to prioritise and getting the waste crews out to you and the recycling crews out to you as much as possible, but we may have the staffing issues that he's mentioned. But so something to bear in mind is that we cannot recycle any kind of Christmas wrapping paper, so we're really encouraging people to think of alternatives. Can you recycle, paper bags that come back from the shops, or brown paper? Can you use fabric to wrap up your gifts? Just new and innovative ways of doing things. Or can you just recycle your own wrapping paper at home onto the next present and the next? And obviously flatten and hang on to your recycling and minimize your packaging as much as possible for when the recycling crews are next due to come out. And then in terms of keeping warm, so this week it's getting very cold, and we've got this great resource, actually, Energy at Home website. And I don't know how widely known it is, but there's actually loads of really good tips on there, both sort of complex home improvements that you can do and sources of funding you can access for those, and simple tips about, I don't know, keeping your curtains closed when it gets dark to keep the heat inside, all kinds of things on there. So it's really worth going and having a look at that. So I think that's the end of that slide, and on to the next one. I suppose this is some messages about just really looking out for your neighbours and remembering all the things that we were doing during COVID. So, bearing in mind it's going to be cold weather and it's dark and there'll be people at home. So just remember to keep an eye out for them and refer anyone you're concerned about after all these sources of support that we've got. So the Community Wellbeing Hub is the partnership between Virgin Care, 3SG, which is our third sector group, the Clinical Commissioning Group and the Council, and it's where all the different third sector groups we've got operating around Bath and North East Somerset, sort of contact details are pulled together. So if you just dial that number, if there's someone you're worried about or some support that somebody needs, just call that number and they'll point you in the right direction, just as they did through the worst of the pandemic and COVID. I think, unless Tim has got anything to add on that slide that I've forgotten, we can go on to the next one. And this is just lots of sources of further information, so you can keep up to date. The council will be putting out a stream of information, as we always do. So information about COVID and about keeping safe, about keeping warm, looking after your neighbours, all those key pieces of information. And these are the places where you can catch up with all our key messages. So we've got Nextdoor, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. That's all. Oh, subscribe to our social media. So some of those you can sign up to. We've got a weekly newsletter that you can sign up to. And I think in due course, there will start to be possibly a weekly piece in some of our print media too. So I think that's it from me, unless Councillor Ball has anything to add.
You said it all very well, Sarah. Well done.
All righty, good.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very interesting. I think we should open up discussion to the forum. this is an opportunity to ask questions, but also to put forward thoughts and ideas and concerns that you may have for your particular community. If there are questions, can you please raise your hands? I don't know if everybody knows how to do that in Teams, but under reactions, which is a tab on the bottom of the screen on a PC, I'm not sure how it works on a Mac. There's a button that's raise your hand. So any questions? Peter Bryan.
So just practicing.
Fine. Neil.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking of a question for the medical representatives. My wife and I attended at Coombe Down about 3 weeks ago for our boosters. We were there for at least 20 minutes because, of course, we had to wait afterwards and only saw one other person. I'm just wondering how good the take-up is. Is it likely that every slot will be filled in all these various venues? And, you know, are some people falling by the wayside and maybe need to be encouraged more?
Thank you. So we are seeing a number of did not arrive. The DNAs, people just simply not coming because what they've been able to do is they've gone on the National Booking Service and seen something potentially a little bit earlier that they could get their vaccine. Some of our PCNs, so like Coombe, they are doing a bit of a local booking service as well. So they're inviting people. We are closely monitoring their demand and capacity. So if they're going to do 400 vaccines a day, we then review how many did they actually do. I want to reassure everybody, no vaccine is wasted. Absolutely no vaccine is wasted. But to reiterate, we closely monitor how many vaccines were given on any one day and as to why maybe we do have a no-show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt.
Hi, thanks, John. I again to the medical people. I was lobbied last night by somebody who looking utterly defeated, who'd been trying for some weeks, 3 weeks I think, to get a third initial dose of the vaccine and could not get one. Was told wasn't possible, and that he should go for a booster. But apparently, he's right. Is it that a booster is not the same as one of the initial doses? Anyway, he contacted me this morning, say he got an appointment this morning. So something went right, but it took him a long time, and I didn't realise there was a difference between the doses. Is that right?
So just to say, it's how the language they're using. It's so this is for people who are immunosuppressed. So somebody who may be having cancer treatment or they're particularly got a medical condition. They refer it to a third primary dose. How it is recorded, it's recorded as a booster. But what we have is that our GPs have run a search on their systems to identify those that should be invited to come forward. What we are seeing is some people self-declaring that they believe they are in that group that should come forward. It's been really difficult to identify where that's available on the MBS service, but I believe now it's been corrected. But yes, we are encouraging anybody who feel they're in that group of extreme vulnerability to come and get that third dose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Douglas, Mr. Creed.
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button. Thank you, John, very much. Just one thing. I chair the Environs Committee of Bath Preservation Trust, and one of the issues we've been discussing is about the sharing of resource. I think we're all under pressure, but from time to time, different elements of our charities or our businesses have surplus resource. And I think one thing certainly we've been looking at is to share that resource with other people, so that we can fill in and help support services in various other domains. I mean, it's a commercial practice that I've been using in my commercial life for the last 5 years or so. And particularly as parish chairman for Kelston, one of the issues we have at the moment is, and we're suffering as a result of the staffing levels within the planning department at Baines, and I appreciate all the reasons why they've been short-staffed, but as far as enforcement are concerned, I appreciate again that's a council issue, but wherever we can support the council through its services, we're open for business, as it were. So I think communication needs to be two ways, and certainly as a parish and as Preservation Trust is concerned, we're very supportive.
Thank you very much. Neil.
Sorry, I don't want to be hogging it, but if there are no other members of the public, one of the big issues that we've had with public services recently, and Will touched on this, is shortage of heavy goods vehicle and PSV drivers, and there's been a fair bit of poaching going on. I'm afraid to say a lot of it encouraged by Department for Transport, and DVLA, I understand, have been writing out to anybody with a HGV license, for example, encouraging them to switch to drive lorries, which of course is all very well, but it impacts on our services. And I did actually write to Jacob Rees-Mogg about this, and our MP obviously, and he in turn wrote to Grant Shapps. So I do have a reply from Grant Shapps about this. I wouldn't say it's terribly illuminating, but if anybody's interested, I'm very happy to share it with them. So I gather there's been quite a bit of a row going on in DFT about this tactic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? So thank you very, very much for that presentation on the health and budget pressures. All very, very interesting. One thing I would add from personal experience, I've had to wait for a booster because having received an NHS ping, the nearest location I could get was Totterdown. I live south of Bath. There's something weird in that NHS app, I tell you. No, I'm not going to travel to the far side of Bristol. What's the point?
Can I just say you don't need to, and I urge everybody, if they don't see a site near to them, just keep trying, because what's happening is all the appointments are filling up. But no, you shouldn't have to travel that far. There are community pharmacists are offering it, and the Bath Race School. So please come back to me if you or anybody else are still finding that a problem. Thanks.
Thank you. No, we're going to Culver Hayes School, which is one of the nearest senior schools, so that's fine. But it's just problematic. I was just wondering how many people see that and go, oh, and don't try and try and try. Anyway, one question I do have, I'm sorry before you go, but it's been running around my brain, and very interesting the comment that was made on mask wearing. I had some long conversations with an entomologist back when the pandemic started, so I've got a slightly skewed view on masks. Skewed, wrong word. An interesting view. Do you know, on the basis of what you brought to the forum, if there are going to be plans, national plans, to re-look at how masks are to be used, on how guidance may change, or is the national guidance going to be as, I use the word advisedly, clear as it currently is?
You might be the best person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It will depend on whether the government decides to introduce Plan B, which it published as a potential plan to introduce should the current measures that are in place to control the levels of COVID not be sufficient. So at the moment, there aren't any plans to introduce Plan B, and Plan B involves things such as working from home, bringing back the legal requirements to wear face masks in certain situations, and the possibility of vaccine passports as well into certain settings. So it includes a number of those stricter control, what are called control measures. So at the moment, there isn't an appetite, I understand, nationally to introduce Plan B. It's always there in a background. So the messaging is more around encouraging. So the guidance is encouraging if people are in busy enclosed areas or even outdoors, but very sort of shoulder to shoulder. So where you are in an enclosed space, then that's where the encouragement is to wear face masks. So it's an encouragement as opposed to a legal mandate. And the government will introduce other things if it decides that the COVID cases needs that extra legislation coming in. But at the moment, that's not planned for at the moment.
Okay, thank you. That's a
Thanks,
shame.
John.
Thank you. I bet it does clarify, because a few people know I've just recovered from COVID. I'm 90% sure I caught it off someone who had COVID in Sainsbury's. They had the cough, no mask, weren't covering their face. There's nothing you can do. Shrug shoulders. Anyway, that's a personal view.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm sorry to hear that. I guess just one very quick thing. That's why we are wanting to put some additional support to businesses, because I think if people walk into shops and they see a very clear sign on the front door asking people to wear face masks, and they see that staff are also wearing face masks, it will encourage a proportion of people who otherwise wouldn't have worn them to wear them. Not everybody will, but it will increase the proportion that will a little bit. Thanks.
Anyway, I won't go off on a tangent on that. I can very easily, but thank you very much for your time, everybody. That's much appreciated. Next item on the agenda, the terms of reference for the forum. This is something that's been tried to be agreed for the last 2 meetings. The document has not changed since it was first circulated 2 meetings ago. I'm going to do this on a reverse basis. Does anyone have any reason why the terms of reference for the Bathhaven Area Forum should not be supported? No? I'd take that as an approved. If anyone does not like that approach, please say so. Silence, fine, taken, done. Moving on to the climate emergency. Started setting up a group called the Bathhaven Climate and Nature Working Group. We sort of called it BCNG for the time being, because it's got a bit of a flow, a sort of flow. I must admit, recently I thought perhaps we should call it the BSG, the Bathhaven Sustainability Group. The more I'm understanding the subject, the more I realize sustainability or sustainable is the common word that runs through every subject we are trying to deal with in terms of the overall lifestyle within each of the topics. So I'll leave that as a thought for the steering group to consider. There are 2 documents that need to be considered. One is Bathhaven, is the BCNG terms of reference, which was meant to be approved at the last meeting, but I'm afraid I wasn't present. I'll follow the same process. Are there any reasons why anyone feels that terms of reference should not be accepted, or they do not wish to? I'll take that as a no objections and take the term. Neil.
Sorry, Chair, I was just wondering about the list of parishes and parish councils and parish meetings involved. There are one or two queries, such as is Newton St Low counted in, even though it's not in Bathhaven South? Is Kelston in, even though it's in Newbridge, I think, for example?
Well, the BCNG is open to all parishes within the Bathhaven area. It's open to surrounding parishes as well. It's open to interested groups.
Okay.
It's open to bodies who have an interest in the Bathhaven area. It's basically replicating Bathhaven Area Forum terms of reference, where the body is actually open to a much wider range and group of bodies than purely the parish councils within Bathhaven.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anna. I'm sorry, you're on mute, Anna. There's a problem with your volume. Or is it my...
No, John, I think I mean, Anna's off of mute, but she's I think the earphones she may be using might not be coming through at the moment.
Ah, can you hear me, Anna? Yes, I can't hear you.
Ah, I think she's coming through now.
I can hear you very well. Okay. No, unless I wear the phone earplugs, you will not hear me. My laptop sound system is very poor, so I have to wear this just to speak. Is there any scope for editing these two documents, which I've honestly only just seen? It's not that I'm not happy adopting them, but there are things that could do with tidying up.
There is always time for amendments, because the truth is we're looking to address a topic that does not have a template nor predefined process to follow the resolution of. So we are learning as we go, and we've got to be agile. We've got to move with what is needed rather than get bogged down in detail, if that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Douglas.
Thanks, John. Just to say that Kelston and Newton St Low are included in item 1.2 of the terms of reference. So from Kelston's point of view, we're very happy to be with you. I can't speak for Newton St Low, but those parishes are certainly on the list.
Fine, thank you. This is one of the problems of online meetings. I've got that in a document, but then I lose what's on the screen. I can't have it next to me. Well, I could, but I don't have a printer. Waste of resources.
John, I'd just a little bit there. I think with Neil's point about Kelston and Newton St Low is that when the ward boundaries changed, they sort of slipped out of what were commonly known as Bathhaven, and they sort of sit on the fringe. But you're quite right; they are more than welcome to be part of the organisation you're setting up there.
I mean, I suppose the only question is, which area are they formally within? Should they have voting rights? And if the answer's they're within Bathhaven Forum, they're within Baines, they should have voting rights.
Yeah, and they're invited to be so. I think Kelston want to be part of Bathhaven Forum. Newton St Low, we've written to them asking what they would like to do in terms of forum area that they would like to be represented under, because really, when people are on the fringe, it's all about kind of what's most appropriate for them and what the sorts of topics and similarities are within each forum area. So we'll go back to Newton St Low again and just check with them to see what they wish to do.
Although given that English Coombe are represented here brilliantly by Brian, makes sense that Newton St Low are along here as well.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So we'll accept the terms of reference for the Climate and Nature group. The next is the approach that we need take to set up the steering group and how we then move forwards from there to create the subgroups. We could go back to square one and go through the process that lots of others have been through before. We're 90% sure we're going to end up at the same start position where there are a ream of groups that seem to be consistent across the various bodies that are set up, such as in Bathhaven, the Chew Valley, and a number of parishes as well. And it seems that the subject areas naturally fall into the natural environment, renewable energy, home energy, sustainable transport. And if we're going to look at the wider concepts in terms of our communities, then there's food, health and well-being. When raised with me, a very good question. How can you have sustainability if you aren't sustainable people? Good question. So health and well-being, and to band everything together, one of the key things that is clear that's needed is communications. So there's a view on the 7 groups. The purpose of the steering group is really quite simply put to support parish councils in their activities, to provide a link between parish councils collectively and BANES, enable and support local communities in climate and nature activities, enable and support Bathhaven-wide activities, and enable support cross-community forum climate and nature activities. So that's basically saying it's working in all directions, up, down, and across. Probably the best way to move this forwards, because as Anna raised, I think it was Anna, I'm sorry, I'm having problems with names in my head at the moment. We're not working to a predefined model. We've got to be agile, and to be able to work in this way, we've got to be collaborative. We need an enabling environment in the steering group, not a directive environment. And so we've got to find ways of working together. I spent my life as, well, not my whole life, but the second half of my working life as a project manager. And one of the first things I always had to do was work with the team. Who are the team? Who are the characteristics? How do you work together? How do you pull the skills together? How do we all basically work together rather than just following a rigid rule-based book? Anna, do you wish to raise a point, or is your hand still up?
I just want to say that I really appreciate the fact that we're suggesting that 2 people should be nominated, because we find so often that one person is not available when the meeting comes up. I also appreciate the fact that being such a small parish council, we are happy to welcome contributions from members of the community who are not necessarily councillors.
Yeah,
I think that will make it much more valuable, certainly from my point of view.
there is absolutely no problem within the BCNG for members of the community to work on the BCNG with the blessings of the parish council. So they're basically representing the parish council. The whole point is this has to be community based, but we've got to go through parish councils to the community, not bypass. Yeah. Welcome. So what we're suggesting is, in the first instance, if parish councils can put 2 names forward for members to represent the community, and if you can let us know which of those groups those members would be interested in, that can be done via email to myself. That's fine. It won't stay with it being just me, believe me. Each of the working groups will have a lead. However we work, it has to be a lead in each working group, and that lead will be on the steering group. Whether we keep that name or not isn't the point. Let's use that name for the moment. So we need step 1 to set up the steering group, which I believe should be 2 or 3 people plus a person from each of those subject areas. So I'm putting Mark on the spot here. I'm wondering if, because I did ask if we could have an interactive poll on this. If not, could you just let me know via chat whether you are willing to be on the steering group, and then we can take the numbers from there. The approach we're looking to take on the first meeting is to basically have an enabling meeting. So it will be, can I list the 7 groups? Mark, are you able to cut and paste, or shall I?
You carry on, and I'll see if I can get those up. I'll have a look for those.
Thank you. Actually, I've got them on. What am I saying? I've got them on the screen in front of me.
Oh, if you've got them there, then go for it.
Everyone hasn't got a send button. But there we go.
Yeah.
Where was I? The first meeting we're looking to utilize as an enabling meeting, which will be facilitated, and it's a meeting whereby we get to know each other and we get to understand each other in terms of what we're about, what our strengths are, and how we help each other. Because the only way this is going to work is through cooperation. Richard, I'm going to ask you a question directly. Richard Mann, are you on the call? Yeah, hi Richard, I can see you now. Is there anything you would like to add to the enabling meeting?
Well, for those who were on the last call, I presented some bio-regional thoughts about how we might approach the climate emergency, which I think might give us an overarching framework. We've seen COP26 come and go, and I don't know what the general feeling on this call might be about it, but I think it points even more strongly to the fact that we're going to have a grassroots mass movement to solve the problems that confront us, and which approach ever faster in the coming decade. And just to sort of slightly probably deepen a comment you made, John, I think in terms of the steering group, a process I've been through, which I found very enriching and motivating with another group, was actually finding out what people's deep motivations are towards getting engaged in this kind of work. And I think doing that early doors, I think helps create really strong working relationships really quite quickly. And in turn, it makes it a very rewarding space to work in. That's probably all I'd want to add.
Thank you very much, Richard. Sorry, I'm smiling. Grow Bath Eastern, if you could please let me know who I should talk to within Grow Bath Eastern, and then we can work out how we can best work together. It'd be fantastic to have you involved across all subjects. Just trying to spread the load across the areas. Okay, Anna, you don't need to commit to a subject at this moment.
Sorry,
right.
can I just ask a question?
Please do.
Okay, before voting. Sorry, my cat's sneezing in the background. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify about communications group, exactly what, is that kind of communicating between the groups, or is that communicating about the climate crisis?
It's a broad topic. It's an area which I'm aware needs communication skills when going outside of the group. We all feel we have a message, but it's a question of how messages are worded. Fundamental. So we will be having communications going out to the community. So that needs careful consideration. We may well be building a website. Again, communications are needed to get the wording right and presentation right. We may be going up to Baines, to MPs, who knows? We don't know exactly what we're going to be needing yet, but it's quite clear to me, and I'm bringing my professional hat in here. I always thought I knew best as a project manager until I had a communications team alongside me. It was the first time I had a really, really serious project that was public facing. I shifted my view from when I started them being a pain to really appreciating the impact and benefit of having the correct wording, because the whole wording was changed from being project driven to audience driven. They understood the wording that the people, the messaging needed to go to understood. I didn't. And I think we're going to need the same here. Because we've got to get to local communities. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it does.
So if you've got comm skills, please. So what I'm proposing is that as chair of the forum, I don't take a specific subject. It's going to require a lot of, each subject is going to require additional work by the leader, make no bones about that. But it's a start. Okay. I could go on and on and on. I'm trying to keep this quite brief, and I may be being too brief. So if you do have any questions, please say so. Please raise them. No. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, I've got the wrong glasses on. Fiona, yes, I'll certainly. I assume you're asking for, I'm not clear what you're asking for in the chat.
Well, I don't have the terms of reference. I mean, there may well be papers that I've missed seeing.
Okay.
This is my first meeting, but I also wanted to have the copies of the earlier presentations because there was stuff that was very useful to be able to distribute around South Stoke residents. So, I mean, particularly the stuff that's public facing. So it would be useful to have those slides too.
Absolutely no problem, Fiona. I'll get those papers across to you following the meeting.
I've already done it.
You're a star, Matt. Thank you.
Just emailed them.
Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. I thought I saw a message from Sarah Warren. Yes, thank you. Just so you know,
I do.
Keep going.
It's Sarah here. Yes, I'll see if my camera will work for a second. Hi, yes, well, I'm happy to provide support and backup and things. So I'm a bit meetinged out, so I better not commit to too much in terms of attending meetings, but I'll be here in the background, and anyone's got any questions or would like me to attend a particular thing, then just let me know.
Thank you very much. And just so everyone's aware, we're fully engaged with the Bain sustainability team, and we will be working closely with them. They're going to support the subject groups, the subgroups, and they will be members of the relevant groups. So it's all good. Thank you. Are we doing time-wise? Dave, an update on sustainable transport.
I'll be brief, John, with an eye on the clock. For those who don't know, I'm secretary of the Baines Rural Transport Group, which was a group formed about 2 years ago in response to a discussion at the parish's liaison meeting. And in the intervening period, I've been trying to keep an eye on what's happening with rural transport. The last month has been very important. I'll just mention 3 things, but if you aren't aware of them, it'll be worth bugling them up, and we can provide the links to them following up the meeting. The first one is that WECA has published its bus service improvement plan, its regional response to central government's Bus Back Better strategy. It's a good read, it reads well, and there's a lot in it. Do have a look at it. How much of it actually gets delivered is dependent on funding downstream, but at least we can all see now where WECA would like to take us. And that's a big improvement on where we were 6 months ago. So do have a look at that. Related to the bus service improvement plan, WECA has launched 2 important consultations. The first one is into supported bus services. Those bus services, particularly rural bus services, that otherwise, without the subsidy, are not commercially viable. So very important. This survey runs until the 28th of November, so you still have time to respond to it. But suffice it to say, this survey has not been WECA's finest hour. Lots of problems with it, but it's there to be had, and I would encourage you to respond to it. The second consultation, which has just been launched, is about the A37 and the A367, in there being key trunk routes linking the larger settlements to Bath and Bristol. WECA want to look at how those trunk routes could be made more efficient for walking, cycling and bus use. So that's an important consultation as well. It's all happened pretty quickly over the last few weeks. I'm happy to chat about it offline after the meeting if you have any questions in particular. Otherwise, do have a look at them. And as I say again, I encourage you to participate because they are important. John, thanks.
Thank you very much, Dave. Much appreciated. Does anyone have any questions on transport? No.
Anna's got her hand up.
Oh, why can't I see? Oh, yes, Anna, I do apologise.
No problem at all. I wanted to say, Dave, that I looked at the survey, and there is no way that one can contribute anything unless you are on one of the routes that are supported. Otherwise, there is nothing you can say. You know, I was looking forward to replying to why can't I use the public transport more? What would induce me to do more? But unless you specifically live on one of the routes and you are a user, even an occasional user, they're not interested in you.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The survey itself wasn't very cleverly constructed in any way, shape or form. We challenged WECA on this, and some amendments were made to some of the questions, but to cut a long story short, they were unwilling to make any substantial changes to what went out. I agree with you. Their intransigence is going to limit the information they get from the survey, and I'm very concerned about what use they are going to make of the data that comes out of it. I share your concern, but they are in a trench and won't come out.
Thank you. Yes, I have to say I've had some comments back from the community about the survey.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. And any other questions, Matt?
Yes, I just wanted to, just back up what David said there. The consultations are ongoing. The corridor studies are particularly important. There is big money behind these, and it's not just about the 367 in our patch. It's about how you access the 367 as well. So if you're in one of the villages off the 367, but you want to access the 367 and the bus is on that route, coming up that route, your views are needed there as well. So really important that we get as many responses as we can. And David is the man who knows. So.
Thank you very much, Matt. Okay. As there aren't any further questions, is there anything anybody wishes to raise? No? Okay, I'll pick up the responses to the steering group and we'll be in touch with people. If you haven't got enough people, I'll be hassling others to join, which I'm known to do. Dave, are you wanting me to mention you mentioned in your notes to me about other meetings, you wanting these to be raised?
Forgive me, John, I'm not quite sure.
Sorry, Mark, I do apologize.
Okay.
I have to explain, I do apologize. I'm physically recovered, mentally. The pieces of wire that connect in your brain to pull names together don't quite connect yet. Mark.
Sorry, John, can you just repeat the question?
Yes. At the end of the notes, there's some details about other meetings. Are you wanting me to raise those?
If you don't mind, if you could just run, if you can either go through them or do you want me to read them out, John? I don't mind either way.
Well, I might as well. 3SG will be holding similar discussions over the next 2 weeks. If you wish to revisit those across the Soma Valley, Keynsham, Bath, and 3SG sector. I just put those in here to everyone. And the Cabinet Office's webinar is this Thursday, 25th at 11, keeping your community safe again. And the budget meeting is on the 14th of September. I think we've actually just heard a lot of that, but this will be delving into the detail, no doubt. And the budget report to the Council's Policy Development and Scrutiny panel is on Monday, the 29th of November at 4 p.m. And that's via a webcast that one can listen into. So the details for all these will be passed on after the meeting. And I think that's all the information need share out. Other than the dates of the next future meeting is the 8th of February 2022. From past history, the calendar for 2022 will be set at the Baines. It's essentially called the Chair of Chairs meeting, where they take all the forum and all council movements and build a calendar. So that will be coming out, no doubt, in the new year. And us will build a date for the steering committee outside of this meeting rather than commit to a specific date. And where Christmas is coming, we've got to be flexible on finding what works for people. Okay.
John, there was just one last thing I just wanted to mention, if that's okay. You and I had a quick chat about our future agenda items for this forum, and we felt
I do apologise.
No, that's okay. We did feel that I think that one of the approaches might be to ask each of the parishes to let us know what their top 3 priorities are at the moment, so we could kind of draw a commonality across the region. So
we did indeed. It was basically, to those who remember Peter Dupper Miller, bless him, it was to take forwards that approach. If we were all in a room, there'd be a big board and we'd have our issues for our own parishes that you put on a post-it note, it gets put on the board, ordered, and you build up an issues log. And that provides 2 things. One, it gives the basis for a formal issues log, essentially an action log for Baines that people can report back on and one can update. And the second part is you get clarity on which are the key areas that we can then bring forward as forum subjects. Now, we can't all be in a big room together, unfortunately. So we've got to look at this another way. So at the next meeting, could you please come along with your top 3, top 5 issues, and then we can build an issues log. If you wish to email them in advance, that would be helpful. Yep, I think that's pretty much as we discussed, Mark.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Apologies. So I'll go back, having added a bit to it. Can you please, is there anything else that anyone wishes to raise questions to ask? If not, those who aren't going to be involved in the steering group, have a fantastic winter break and a great Christmas. and hopefully it's going to be a lot better than last year. If I were drinking again, I'd raise a glass to you, but I can't. Thank you very much. I call the meeting to a close.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, John. Well done.